Where was his consciousness and soul before this? Does his body feel human? Do his arms feel like sticks? WTF? Is he different than other snow? Like, is the snow on the ground the same as his body? And then I wrote, I don't really need these questions answered. It's just fascinating.
Today we are talking about Jack Frost, the 1998 family comedy about a dead dad turning into a snowman.
Hell yeah.
How do you sell this movie? Like,
How do you
convince Michael Keaton to do this?
I think I have a theory. Make the main character a blues guy. I feel like the script came in, there's no blues in it, and he's like, you know what this needs? A blues guy. Yeah. A suburban-ish blues dad with a fedora.
You hand me a harmonica, I'll do this movie. Let's get into the plot of Jack Frost. The film opens up with the Jack Frost band playing a blues rock version of Frosty the Snowman, and the audience is going wild. An industry person in the crowd is very impressed.
With crazy sideburns, by the way.
It's the 90s, man. He's in the music industry. It's a part of the job. And of course, Michael Keaton is the titular Jack Frost. He is literally named Jack Frost. How do you feel about that?
I mean, don't overthink it. It feels like that was pretty critical to the whole thing.
This movie asks you several times throughout it not to overthink it. And I can...
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts about that. We'll get to around midpoint. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get into their band a little more, because, I mean, this is a weird concert because they're the Jack Frost band. They're a winter-themed band, and they play winter-themed blues rock songs. What the is this?
I wonder if it has something to do with, like, because the whole movie's in, like, this very idyllic winter town in Colorado, I guess. So I'm like, maybe they love winter more there. I'm not clear on that.
They love it. And they love Christmas-themed blues rock music.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, that, I was kind of bopping my head to the Frosty the Snowman song. I thought it was cool.
That's the thing. I say this, but the band fucking rips. They rock. They're
at
great
the end
band.
of the day, yeah.
So,
it's blues for children. If you want to get your infant/toddlers into the blues,
true.
Maybe that's how you start, so it's not too sad.
Yeah, I see the value in this. This is a great band.
I would like to know if it was Michael Keaton really ripping on that harmonica. It did look like it, so.
I bet he can do that. He seems like a very cool dude. So the next morning, as a snowplow driver is listening to the live recording from the show that we just saw on the radio. So
there is like a Grateful Dead tape trader scene out there for the Jack
that's
Frost
what's happening,
band.
yeah. And the DJ, I don't know if you caught this, but he asked the listeners not to ask how he got that tape, which is, like I was saying, the movie asks you multiple times throughout it, don't worry about how this is all happening. It's just happening.
And here they just say it out loud.
Because the logistics... I like the
implication. He's like, you don't want to know how I got that tape. Like he jacked off some guy in an alleyway after.
Yeah, because they played a show last night, and snowplow drivers hit the roads pretty early, right? They got
like
the
3, 4
traffic.
in the morning.
Yeah, that means that somebody not only recorded their show, but mixed and mastered it immediately and delivered it to the radio stations. And I just don't see this Frosty the Snowman cover from a blues, like a not even signed band, being a priority
on morning radio, which is usually like talk and news and weather
that only the snowplow driver is going to hear.
Maybe it shows you the importance of the Jack Frost band in the local community.
Yeah, they're obviously big local heroes. That would have been nice to see, like, him get recognized locally more and see that. And then over at the school, the kids are fleeing to start their Christmas vacation, and we meet young Charlie Frost. And Charlie enters a full-scale Arctic warfare snowball fight. Charlie's friend says the 7th graders have us pinned down, and they've brought out the heavy artillery. And the 7th graders do have a cannon system that they have created to launch extremely dangerous amounts of snow at the smaller children. And when Charlie sits up, he sees the culprit, Rory Buck, the motherfucking spiky-haired, goggle-wearing bully who's sucking on a pepperoni stick.
Yeah, like a cigarette, not eating it, just sucking on it.
Just a
this
power
archetype,
move.
Like I had a guy who was a year older than me in public school who looked like that.
With the spiky hair,
the cool clothes, the whole thing, and he was kind of a bully. Not like king bully, but he definitely, like, that vibe was very recognizable.
Yeah, if you're spiking up your hair like that, you want to, like, pound on some nerds for sure.
Yeah. Oh, another thing I thought was funny is they're leaving school for winter holidays, and the teacher's like, no running. Like, no. No, you don't get to tell the kids not to run away from school when the holidays have started. So
No running. We're outside, motherfucker.
it's school's over.
School's
like
over.
you should be not worried about that, let alone the kids being worried about
get a
that.
life,
Off.
Mrs. Loser.
Yeah, big time.
And a whimpering child is caught in the crossfire of battle. Charlie risks his own well-being to save their stranded ally. Then the bully confronts Charlie, ending with Charlie giving the bully a snow-covered slap across the face. And as Charlie walks off up the snowy hills of victory, the smaller kids thank him for his bravery.
And yeah, he's smart. He's brave. He stands up for people who need it. He's established as a real special kid. And it'd be a shame if something happened to put that spark
daddy.
out. Yeah.
And this whole snowball fight scene is the highlight of the movie for me. I think it's really well done. It's like a little war film, and it's taken completely seriously, and they fully commit, and there's no like winking at the camera, which makes it inherently funny. So that really worked for me, keeping the stakes high throughout that, and just never breaking.
Yeah, I will agree that, like, the lead up, obviously we kind of touched on this. Things kind of start to unravel when the magic snowman comes in the picture. But the setup, I feel like they established a lot of things really well, and it creates this really powerful thing where you see, as I said, Charlie's this really smart, kind, sweet kid, and then when that gets taken away, it's quite powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
And sad, yeah.
But then it becomes undercut by a CG snowman existing.
Yeah. For reasons that we will never know, but we will certainly dive into.
Yeah. Well, he just affects the movie tonally overall in a negative way because the comedy changes, everything changes with the inclusion of this snowman and becomes more dumb.
Which unfortunately is like so central to everything.
It is very central. And then over at the Frost residence, over at their house, Charlie gets home and is disappointed to find his dad's not home yet. And mom is underneath the kitchen sink trying to repair it because obviously dad isn't home a lot. So she's got to take the quote unquote man duties and fix the kitchen sink.
It's established that because of his hectic winter-themed blues band schedule, Jack can't be around a lot. However, it's also super clear that he's a very attentive and like caring father to the as much as he can be, and it just like it doesn't. You're into this tough thing because it's a children's movie, so you're not trying to make him be some like deadbeat asshole. But I'm like, well, he seems like a pretty good dad. Like, he spends time with Charlie, clearly. Like, Charlie seems pretty happy. But I get it. Like, you'd like him to be around more. But also, I don't know, wouldn't it be kind of cool for your dad to be the Jack Frost?
Yeah, it's interesting that he is not the cliche deadbeat dad that I think, most movies would use instead of, he's actually a good dude. He's just torn between two worlds of like, he's at the like pinnacle of his career where it's time to make it. And he needs to put the effort there. And his family does understand, but it breaks the kid's heart.
But this reminds me, now that we just started talking about that, Mrs. Doubtfire. The problem in Mrs. Doubtfire is he's like not a deadbeat, but kind of like a goof. Like he's not quite like responsible enough for something. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then he has to become someone else to like be the proper responsible parent. So there's this like, I don't know what you call that, like
the growth
transformation, a physical transformation in Mrs. Doubtfire. It's into an old big bosomed lady. Yeah, so Mrs. Doubtfire, maybe that's a bit of a parallel for this.
Yeah, another one that popped into my head was The Santa Claus. It's very similar to this movie. And that movie takes the approach of the deadbeat dad. That guy is, I think, if I remember correctly, he's a piece of shit. And then the father has to go through this transformation, becoming this other character. What sets this one apart is Mrs. Doubtfire and the Santa Claus. Those movies are about the dad. Like, Miss Doubtfire is about Robin Williams becoming a more responsible father. And the Santa Claus...
by acting like this other person or becoming them, they take parts of them back to them,
Exactly. And I think this movie is really not about the dad's journey. It's not about him. It's really about Charlie. And it's about him going through grief and processing it and getting through it.
When you put it that way, like super ambitious for a funny family Christmas movie.
Absolutely. It's a bummer.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, on paper it's a bummer, but it doesn't play that depressing, so it works. So that night, Michael Keaton gets home and he wakes up Charlie to go build a snowman.
Very cute, very sweet. And he's like, the wife's like, oh, he's tired. And he's like, oh, but I want to see him. It's very sweet. And like, you're like, if you're a kid, it would be really fun to be woken up, be allowed to stay up late to build a snowman with dad. Very sweet scene, yeah.
And this is an important scene because we're going to mirror it later once Jack dies, the snowman building sequence.
And of course, the critical moment, he takes Michael Keaton's white blues guy fedora and crowns it atop the snowman. I would think
nice.
If this was like a nice leather blues guy fedora, I would not want my fedora on that snowman, but that's how much he loves his kid.
He's a good dude. He's a good dad. And then Jack gives Charlie a special harmonica for Christmas that he bought on the day he was born. And then Charlie says he has a hockey game tomorrow and really wants him to be there. Jack says he's in the studio, but he will make it. But the next day at the hockey game, after the coach, Henry Rollins, gives the team a rousing, aggressive pep talk.
At one point, pep talk. At one point, Henry Rollins is like, let's kick their filthy butts. I'm like, filthy butts? What the hell? They don't wipe their asses. Now let's get out there and play hockey.
Those kids smell like
It's making me sick.
The hockey game finishes. Jack is at the studio all day. He can't get out and he misses the game. So that night he gets home and he has to apologize to Charlie. And to make it up, he's like, okay, we're going to go on a family vacation at the cabin. And Charlie's like, okay, that's sick. The cabin, let's go. Next day, they're packing to leave and the phone rings. And then Michael Keaton is like, oh, this record company wants to sign us. Then his wife like hugs him. Charlie's like, that's so sick. And then he's like, but there's a catch. We have to go to Aspen and play a Christmas party tomorrow. And it's Christmas Day.
Which is nuts. Like,
on Christmas Day, you have to come.
Christmas
and it's
Day.
You have 1 day notice. No, not even. You have 12 hours notice to play my
during
Christmas.
The day. We need to get this blues band for this party, or this deal is not happening. Like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and it started to make sense to me when I was like, well, it is the Jack Frost band, and they do play Christmas-themed blues rock music.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna get a band to play at your Christmas party, this is the f***ing band. This is their time to shine. It's Christmas Day.
Yeah, that's true.
And I was like,
it is just...
It's crazy they don't even, like, they should already have a gig booked on Christmas Day, to be honest.
Yeah,
this is
their
day.
This is the busy season for them, and you'd think Charlie would be used to that by now.
So as Jack and his wife discuss the logistics of getting to Aspen, Charlie hands his father back the harmonica. He doesn't want it anymore. He says nothing, and he just mopes and walks away.
Yeah, that's sad.
Brutal. But luckily, on the way to the party, Jack is like, what the f*** am I doing? And they stop the car, and he calls off the gig. And the whole band is like, hell yeah, like, this is great.
We didn't want to do this either, which is funny to me, because I'm
weird.
like, so they're all too shy to tell one another that they don't want to play the Christmas gig.
None of them wanted
and
to
also
do
it's
it.
like, maybe the stakes weren't that high. Like, then they call the guy, and they're like, oh, hey, we don't want to play the Christmas gig. He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I bet that would probably be the case. They could probably call him and be like, you know what, it's Christmas Day, and it's like, you've given me 12 hours notice, and I'm like with my family. He'd be like, oh yeah, I can't believe I even asked you. That's embarrassing. Sorry. I just did so much cocaine and listened to your album, and I was like so stoked I had to get you on the horn.
That's the guy was giving coke energy for sure. So yeah, this part kills me. Yeah, like the band being like, "No way, we didn't want to do it either. In fact, Glenn's mom's gonna make us all Christmas dinner." Like, so she's already going on that.
So Jack hits the road for the cabin to reunite with his family, but then the weather starts to worsen, and Jack's car collides with the guardrail, and he f***ing dies. He's dead now.
It happens so fast.
Cuts to black, and then there's text on the screen 1 year later.
This is where it gets f***ing heavy.
Yeah,
because it's just like, there's nothing else, and then 1 year later, you cut to a kid in the midst of grief. And the Christmas season, when his dad died a year before on Christmas. This is deep, dark, heavy
And the movie kind of does this like Groundhog Day thing where we're now going to replay most of the scenes that have already happened, but they're all going to be fundamentally different now. So yeah, we're going to mirror the school getting out scene, but this time when the bullies try to hassle Charlie, they decide it's not even worth it, saying he's no fun to pick on since his old man died.
That was wild.
Jeez, a heavy statement.
Got to appreciate the I mean, it's a little self-centered from the bullies, but that is a classy move, I guess. But then the main bully, Rory, is kind of like, F that, no.
Well, yeah, because he never met his dad. That's what he said.
Presumably his dad was a touring blues musician who just never even bothered to raise his kid. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a scene of Charlie shoveling the driveway, and then a snowplow drives by pushing a huge load of snow, just undoing everything that he's done.
The guy's like, oh, sorry, kid.
Which causes Charlie to have a full meltdown. And he just
this is like hard and sad too.
He just starts like going ham on the shovel, just whacking it off the ground. And it ends with his mom just cradling him, and they're both just crying in the driveway, and this camera slowly pulls out, and they're just very sad and unable to cope with the loss of Jack.
Yeah.
Oof.
It's heavy and sad, and I don't know, feels visceral.
Yes. Yeah, this is just funny to be talking about this stuff with this movie, but
I didn't expect
heavy.
Like I knew he died, but I didn't think it would be this like in depth.
Yeah, you know, I didn't expect this central theme to just explore grief so deeply and like honestly.
Yeah, honestly, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess this like meltdown, that is like Charlie finally accepting that his dad died, I guess.
Yeah.
Like he's finally crying and feeling something, I guess.
Engaging with the grief.
Yeah.
And anger and sadness.
So then that night, he's been so like empty, basically. Like he doesn't even respond to the bullies earlier. Like he just looks at them and just hangs his head and walks away.
I think it's established he's like disconnected from his friends. He doesn't really like acknowledge them when he used to be Mr.
And his
Popular.
grades have tanked. Yeah. And he quit the hockey team.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a wreck. And then, yes, he does this snow shoveling thing, finally processes something or starts to feel something again. And then that night, the family's watching TV, everybody falls asleep, and he looks out the window and sees the neighbors making a snowman. And he's like, you know what?
The neighbor kids are just showing off their dad and their snowman. They don't care that Charlie lives across the street. They're like,
this?
Hey, we're making a snowman.
You want
Where's
this?
your dad?
Yeah. But Charlie looks out and he finally decides to re-input some joy into his life. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to go build a snowman right now.
And what song comes on? Landslide by Fleetwood Mac. What a choice.
I never realized how, like, I always loved that song, but this sequence of a sad boy building a snowman really made this song hit for me.
Whoever chose the soundtrack, there's a bunch of awesome songs on this soundtrack that come in at the perfect moment. I don't know when Landslide came out, probably like late 80s, but like, I don't know if it had become like established as a like epically introspective, sad-ish song.
It's
but
haunting. It's haunting. Yeah. And when you see a little boy build a snowman sadly to it, phew.
I mean, a lot of moments we've talked about, really, I felt that this movie was impressive. This is certainly one of them where I'm like...
It's a landslide of emotion. Hell yeah.
Truly, yeah. And then, you know, snow can be a landslide, so a couple levels there.
And then Charlie finally processes his grief by dressing the snowman in his deceased father's scarf and hat. And Charlie then returns to his bed, plays the magic harmonica, which imbues the snowman with his father's consciousness and brings it to life. This is
where I think our notes on this are going to be very similar, because it's mostly just WTF, question mark, question mark, question mark. Here are some of the questions I started asking.
Okay.
Where were his consciousness and soul? He hadn't been somewhere. Mm-hmm. He shows up and he's like, I'm back home, but he's not like, I was in limbo. He's just... back.
It's interesting because he knows that a year has passed too.
Yeah.
So he is aware of something.
We've been talking about how they ask you to not ask a lot of these questions, and I actually like it. Like, I actually like how they don't bother to be like, you know, in some movies, it'll be like, an old witch lady cursed this thing. Like, there's this little story that kind of gives it, but this is just, I said it was a magic harmonica, and because of the power of human spirit, it became a magic harmonica.
I like that as well because I think it's really just the filmmaker saying, we want to tell a story about grief, and this is the metaphor for it. We don't need to explain how we get there because it's inconsequential. Where like in the Santa Claus, which is almost a mirror of this movie, like they go to great lengths to explain every piece of magic.
The lore.
Like, yeah, Santa Claus is this way because of this, and you put on the suit, so therefore this, and there's a document to prove it, and you're like, whoa, okay, it all adds up. And this movie's like, we're just talking about emotions right now.
We'll get into it a bit later as the dynamics of the snowman start to come into play, so I can start getting more questions about that. But I'm just like, he doesn't know he's a snowman until he sees himself in the reflection.
Yeah.
So does he feel like he has a human body? Like, it's all
There's
about
no way.
What is his perception and consciousness? Does he feel cold? Does he feel warm? Do his hands feel like sticks?
If this was real, as soon as you, I guess, materialized into the body of a snowman, you would instantly become overcome with anxiety from not feeling your organs and not feeling like your body.
Warmth.
You would be
like
out of
thermogenic energy.
You would be so like disconnected and like disassociated mentally. You would be like, you wouldn't be able to handle it.
And would it be like cold feels like warmth to him and vice versa, because warm would make him melt and cold would make him... I love all the like trippy shit that comes with this that we just assume the kids won't need to think about.
What other questions you got there, Annie?
Where was his consciousness and soul before this? Does his body feel human? Do his arms feel like sticks? WTF. Is he different than other snow? Like, is the snow on the ground the same as his body? If he melts, will he die? And if he melts, where does his soul go then? And then I wrote, I don't really need these questions answered. It's just fascinating. Oh, and when he becomes detached from his waist and body balls, does he have a centralized consciousness? Is it like a starfish where if you chop off the thing, it becomes a new starfish? Like, because he seemingly, his head has all his thoughts, but his body has like its mind of its... All this stuff's wild.
Right, but I guess it could still be like molecularly connected because of the water in the air, and the snow is just water.
Vapor. Yeah.
If he wanted to, could he like pick up all the snow from like 10 feet around him and
like
control
Magneto?
It and become like a giant snowman? So Charlie sees the now sentient snowman and freaking out, buries himself in the house. Yeah. Which is...
at this point I'll mention as well, Jack Frost's best buddy, I forget his name, but he's this like jolly Englishman who is in his band. Do you remember his name?
It's Mac.
Mac. Yeah, that makes sense. He's watching Charlie. He's pretty... I like that guy in this movie. And he is falling asleep because he's a big oaf.
Oh, right, he's babysitting, yeah.
Yeah, because Charlie's mom had to go do some last-minute Christmas shopping. Really last minute.
He must be drunk as because Charlie is shaking him.
He's probably had a couple
He's like, wake the up, there's a goddamn snowman.
And Max, he's like, a dog peed on a snowman that came to life. And Max like, oh, no cranberries. He's just out. And Charlie's able to barricade the door, also using Mac's big fat ass as a like load.
Yeah, he uses them.
Yeah.
Jack Frost sees his own reflection and almost barely reacts. It's pretty nothing. It's not a big deal. He's just like, oh, that's weird. I'm a snowman.
Sometime afterwards, he kind of touches his belly, and I watched the second half of it with my girlfriend because this was like a childhood favorite of hers, and she was like, she thought that he checked to see if he had a wiener and didn't, and was like, oh no, like, where'd my wiener? I thought he was touching his belly to be like, oh, I have a big fat belly, but she thought it was that he didn't have a dick anymore, and that was disappointing to him.
That seems like the type of humor that would happen there.
Yeah, again, something for the dads. They threw a little something for the dads there.
You can always poke a stick in there and probably use it. I don't know.
Yeah, you could build one, presumably based on his snow physics.
And then mom gets home, and Jack is like, well, I gotta stand perfectly still because I don't want to freak her out too. And then
There's this funny element of he's like, I can't let my wife see me as a snowman. Like,
yeah, but he's like, I will fucking traumatize this child though, no problem.
yeah.
Even though she could probably intellectually accept it more.
And be more helpful, frankly.
And be more helpful and maybe solve this.
Yeah.
Maybe find a way to have him survive.
That's a pretty gaping plot hole. I actually thought that they were going to tell her earlier, and it would have just made it almost more interesting, because then like made her a more central character too, but maybe it would have just muddied the waters, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think this kept it pretty clean. She sees the snowman and she just like caresses it, and
she gets real touchy with that snowman.
Because it's wearing the hat and the scarf, and she's like, oh, that was my husband's, like, let me get on this snowman.
I get it. It just did feel a bit sensual for a snowman for me, but hey, it established something. She misses a lot about her husband, some of which is the sensual touch of a blues man.
Hell yeah. Well, her husband was Michael Keaton. That's a good husband.
Pretty handsome.
And then Charlie explains to her the situation, saying the snowman is alive, but they're like, you are wrong. That obviously cannot be right. So they don't believe
mad with grief.
And then Jack goes for a walk downtown as he wrestles with this existential crisis, saying,
yeah.
And he says, why me? Is it because of the name Jack Frost? If that's it, that's not even clever.
Which is a bit of feels like a self-referential joke about the movie.
It's again, the movie being like, yeah, we know. Don't worry about it.
Chill, yeah. We know too.
Don't overthink.
Obviously, we know. We wrote it.
Yeah. And then, he has that scene with Henry Rollins driving
awesome.
up.
Yeah.
And he sees the snowman and he just freaks out. And he is now, for the rest of the movie, deeply afraid of snowmen.
And like, gone insane in the eyes of the townspeople. Like he's
right, because he's like on the news and being like, there's a real snowman on the loose.
Local psychopath claiming that a snowman
That's a good little
exists.
subplot. It's pretty funny.
Sid Gronick has lost it.
Yeah, he knew my name. Yeah. So the next morning, the Jack has returned to the lawn and he just stands there all night, or sleeps. I'm not sure if he can sleep. We don't.
Yeah.
We don't know, but Charlie comes out of the house armed with a hairdryer and confronts the snowman.
It's also funny, the hairdryer, I don't know if you saw, has like a giant extension cord.
Yeah, it actually makes sense. It would work. Yeah. And the snowman tries to explain that he is his father, which freaks Charlie out, and Charlie runs away. He runs right to the area where the kids do winter sports and bully each other. And then Jack arrives, and using his snowman powers, he unleashes a rapid-fire snowball onslaught upon the children. Yeah, it turns into
this, like, snow whipping machine, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Snowman powers, I guess that's something he just, his intuition just knew he could do it.
Yeah, he has, not only is a snowman, and I guess this makes sense, but like you said, he kind of has power over snow. Again, maybe not quite to the Magneto level that I referenced earlier, but he clearly is a way with snow.
Yeah, which is, I had a note somewhere that was like, earlier when he said, like, my name is Jack Frost, it's ironic that I'm Jack Frost or whatever. But Jack Frost is not a snowman. The actual Jack Frost from mythology is like a little pixie or something. Like, he's a sprite. He's a little mischievous personification of Frost.
Oh, I didn't know that. Is there a Jack Frost in the Frosty the Snowman, the the cartoony like thingy? Because there's the heat miser and the cold miser, but I don't think there's a Jack Frost.
There's a what? Cold miser?
I watched it this Christmas, but I don't remember it well enough. There's two like weird hot and cold, like you said, almost like mythical kind of sprightly kind of figure guys.
Oh wow, I don't remember that.
I couldn't remember if one of them was literally Jack Frost, but I don't think so.
But yeah, he's not a snowman in mythology, the actual Jack Frost. He's just like a little blue dude. He touches stuff and it turns to frost. And then the bullies think that Charlie is responsible for the snowballs flying like that, which is insane because it's like he's throwing literally thousands of snowballs a second. What do they think he's doing? How is that possible? So they chase him and trap him on a cliff face. And they back him into the corner of the cliff. And the kids should not be hanging out and doing winter sports near this cliff. This is crazy dangerous.
And they're comfortable backing him into this cliff, which is, I don't know, it's like 20, 30 feet.
They want to kill him.
Apparently, and he would rather go off the cliff than be bombarded by snowballs, apparently.
You're right. Yeah, because he does fall off the f***ing cliff. The bullies attempt to kill Charlie by driving him over the edge, and they succeed. But Jack uses a sled to catapult himself up and save his son. Perfect.
It doesn't look great, and it doesn't make sense, but whatever.
The CG works for me overall for the most part, but doing like more elaborate action sequences with this CG character is not a good idea.
Not good. And this whole chase that's going to come next looks terrible. And also the physics of the chase make no sense. They're like snowboarding and sledding, but it's like, what does this hill just go down forever? Like they just have momentum the whole time.
I hate this. This is the big
like
low point of the movie.
Maybe the worst part of the movie. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just like boring and stupid and like
everything breaks the laws of reality, and like it is like intellectually like offensive. Everything
and
that
goes
is happening
too long and
goes for so long.
The high points, shockingly, are when he plays with his snow boobs. Somehow Jack Frost gets a couple of snow boobs put on him, and he's like, "Oh,
yeah." He's jiggling his snow boobs, which is,
and then gets rid of them.
Like that.
It's a little off-putting.
I don't
and then
like that.
Later, the bully gets his nuts donged on a tree somehow. Remember that?
Yeah, the bullies are falling down left and right. They're getting owned by the gravity. Jack and Charlie, they're getting away and they're doing really good, and they're all hitting tons of sick jumps and doing great. And Jack is like, "You the man," and Charlie's like, "No, you the man." And Jack says, "No, I'm the snowman."
Nice. There'll be a few more of those coming up too.
They should have just ran the credits right there.
Yeah, I've seen enough.
And two bullies end up getting crushed between two huge snow boulders. So you see that? Holy
oh yeah.
Like it's an Indiana Jones sized boulder that is now chasing Charlie and Jack. And it's like, did they just roll this? Did they have this ready in the right position?
The infrastructure of the
it would take hours to
snow stuff is wild. It always trips me out when I think about people like writing any action sequence, even really good ones, but then one like this, you're writing on a script, like on a writing program, like, and then two giant snow boulders roll down and crush the bullies, and like that's like how you write the script. Like you have to. It's wild. Huh?
Yeah. So only the head bully is left in pursuit. The spiky-haired, goggle-wearing, pepperoni-sucking Rory. When he sees that the snowman, Jack, exists, his concept of reality crumbles and he collapses into the snow. And so Charlie and Jack get away and they celebrate, and then Charlie questions the snowman and he's like, "Okay, prove you're my dad."
Yeah, he's refused to accept that it's his dad up to this point.
Yeah, even though he has the exact same voice.
So he starts quizzing him. He starts testing Jack Frost.
And he ends up calling him Charlie Boy, which is enough to prove that he is...
Yeah, as if no one would ever...
Charlie Boy, the most unique nickname anyone's ever called him.
So yeah, he cracked the code. And the thing is, Charlie's like, the question he asks, he's like, "What position do I play in hockey?" And he's like, "Oh, you play right wing." And then he's like, "No, I switched to defense this year." And he's like, "Well, how the hell would he know that? He's dead." Yeah.
The two of them hug once he finally accepts it. And yeah, Charlie finally buys into the premise of the film, and he's good to go from now on. He's good to go.
Around halfway, or a little over halfway.
Yeah, we're probably about 55 minutes in. Yeah. Charlie ends up loading the snowman up onto like a wagon, and he pulls them through the town. I'm not sure why they're actually doing this. I guess the dad just wanted to get out and see some stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. Was this before or after he had to eat and he's like, "I'm hungry"?
Oh, yeah. I did skip over all that. They were inside. He takes them inside the house at some point to eat.
This is weird, too. But apparently he's just eating frozen food. This makes no sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he has no organs. I mean, he shouldn't even be able to talk technically, but...
And then, like, I mean, we have to keep him cold throughout this. So Charlie's opened all the windows, and then the mom comes home and they have to hide the snowman. And she's like, "Why are the windows open? It's wet." And he's like, "I'm doing a science experiment about what it's like, or a science fair experiment about what it's like to live in an igloo." And they hide Jack Frost and get him out of there. And yeah, eventually this leads to them parading through the town.
Like, That is so underplayed, the reality of that situation. Like me as a kid in the 90s, if I was at home alone and I opened up all the windows in winter and my dad got home or my mom got home and saw that, they would lose their minds.
There's no explanation. I don't care if it's like the National Science Fair. That's not cool. I'm not clear like why he had to take him through the town. Like if they were really worried about the stigma of talking to a snowman, like they could have gone anywhere, the backyard or anywhere that wouldn't attract so much attention, I feel.
Yeah, he didn't need to go to town, but...
And then his friends are like, Charlie ditched us for a snowman. What a dick.
I guess they brought him to town because they need mom to spot him and start getting really worried about Charlie because she sees him dragging around the snowman and she's like, oh, So she asked Mac, the old bandmate, really funny.
Yeah,
to have a man-to-man talk with Charlie.
And she says to him, she's like, you know how I promised I would never make you have a man-to-man talk with Charlie? Which is like really weird thing to promise.
That's such a weird thing to promise. He's also, like the only man in his life.
Yeah, it's assumed that if he was his dead father's best friend, that would kind of be his responsibility. And I think any good friend would be
that should be the only that should be the only thing he does. Yeah.
I promised you I would get you to watch Charlie and help fill in as a parent, but never would you have to speak to him man to man.
Yeah. You can just get drunk and babysit him and just fall asleep while chaos ensues.
Drooling all over your damn self.
Yeah. But meanwhile, Charlie and Jack go to a secluded ice rink and Jack teaches him a special hockey shot. And they
legendary J shot.
Oh. And then... And then, Mac...
This ice rink looked really cool. There was like a weird like ice cave and like, I don't know, the scenery for this looked cool.
Yeah, I feel like there was other cut scenes because of this place, because I saw Charlie like going there a few times, but then it just like cut away.
Yeah.
Like he was about to walk there.
Yeah, maybe they'd had him going there before...
Oh, a scene of him going there and just being sad would have been good. Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been quick too. The other thing is like, just when you first see it there, you can see the entrance to this snow cave. And it reminded me of in like Mario Kart 64, that like snow level, you go in through that cave. I thought it
with
looked
the
cool.
penguins?
I want to, I was like, I want to see what's in that cave.
Those
like
penguins.
glowy. Yeah.
There's nothing more stressful than running into one of those penguins and being like, let's go, but you're on the ice, but it's slippery. You're like, this just fucked me. Like I'm set back now.
So he teaches Charlie the J shot, the legendary, and I forget what the coaching for that was, but it was so bad. It was like, just keep your arms relaxed, but shoot hard, or like something stupid like that. But
put the puck in the net.
And this is, of course, leading to the big hockey game. Which and Charlie has at this point quit his hockey team, but Jack now talks him back into rejoining the hockey team.
He talks him back in a bit. First, Charlie and Mac go to the Christmas market or whatever it is, and they have the heart-to-heart.
Oh, the Shiver Fest is what it is. Yeah.
Shiver Fest.
Yeah, it's a stupid name, but I thought they said Sugar Fest and then read the banner said Shiver Fest.
Oh, like shivering from the cold.
Nice. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, that's probably where his dad's band used to play.
I'm sure that's where they cut their teeth.
You know what? This town, Jack was a local hero and his band was so cool. It's crazy that nobody's like celebrating his like anniversary of his death, or I don't know.
Yeah, or like
dedicate something
worried about
him.
Charlie particularly.
Yeah. Mac explains to him that after his father died, music began to feel like work, so he had to quit. And I was like, is this the man-to-man talk that the mom was hoping for?
Yeah, really centered on Mac.
He's just unloading his shit onto this kid. He's like...
And he's not being like, hey, Charlie, like, we're worried that the grief has made you lose touch with reality. Like, there's nothing like that.
Yeah, there's nothing like, how are you doing? Are you okay, Charlie? It's just like, man, I'm f***ed up too. And then after an inspiring talk from his father, Charlie decides to rejoin the hockey team and pull his life back together. And then the car of kids and the hockey coach, they were expecting him to change his mind suddenly on the way to the hockey game.
And even so, they're kind of like, should we take him back? Even though they just like showed up to ask.
He hasn't been on any practice, so he has no idea. Like, he shouldn't be allowed to join the team. And the coach is like afraid to look at the snowman. He says nobody in the car is allowed to say the word snowman.
This is maybe my favorite part of the movie. Yeah, I laughed really hard at that.
And then they leave for the hockey game. And then Jack admits to us or himself that the warming weather is getting to him. And he's starting to
sun's
melt.
beating down. You hear the radio guy say, "It's a hot one out there," kind of thing.
And he decides that before he melts, he needs to at least see his son play this hockey game. So he starts the journey.
It's also a rematch with the Bullies from earlier, the game that he missed. So it's all coming together.
Oh, I forgot. The Bully plays on the other team?
Yeah, the other team is
go
just
to the
seemingly...
same school.
I know. The other team is just all the older kids.
That's not fair.
No, it's not fair. It's not how it works.
Okay, the grade 7s versus the grade 4s.
Yeah. The old rivalry.
Battle. Yeah.
They're all like 2 feet taller. Yeah. No wonder Henry Rollins is so stressed out all the time.
Yeah, you got to get him on the ice. I would love to see Henry Rollins start body checking these bullies.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, he could, one-man army.
And Jack ends up having to cross a smoldering parking lot. Then he enters the arena, catches the end of the game, and
at this point, too, he's kind of just like hiding behind something. And though we've been concerned about him being seen by people this whole time, he's like, there's a sentient snowman in an arena. No one really cares. After
the game, Charlie notices that his father's melting, and he begins freaking out. He has to find a solution. He says, "I can't lose my father again," which is a sad line because it's going to happen. Because he's a snowman. You can't keep that guy, man.
He goes to find his mom next, right? Because he's like, we need to go somewhere cold.
He tries to explain the severity to her.
And so there's an interesting thing where he's like, we got to go somewhere cold. He sees the mountains. And he's like, mountains are cold. And I'm like, there's got to be like a freezer somewhere around here. But then you realize that that's where their cabin is.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And Mom, she refuses to help him. And then he actually runs into the bully, Rory. He gets him to help. He agrees. And he says, "Snow Dad is better than no dad."
The line of the movie, and my girlfriend, this is like when I told her we were watching this, she was like, oh, there's this incredible line where the bully says, "Snow Dad is better than no dad."
That sums up the whole movie, yeah.
It's kind of weird. Like, Charlie, like, explains to Rory that the sentient snowman's his dad, and he says the line, I have this written down, he's like, "You know what it's like to not have a dad," which is, like, pretty harsh, but, I mean, true. And that's what prompts, of course, Snow Dad's better than no dad.
Yeah,
And then somehow Rory helps Charlie by loading them onto a truck that's going to the mountains.
Yeah, they hitch a ride on the mountain truck, and they end up at the family cabin. And they spend one last night together. And at some point, Jack calls, after Charlie falls asleep, he calls the wife on the phone, and he's like, "Charlie's at the cabin.
It's me."
He doesn't say it's him, but... I mean, it's this. She's like, "Jack?" Because it's his voice.
Yeah, it's his exact, very distinct voice.
And then he just like hangs up or whatever.
Yeah, and she and Mac decide to drive up there.
Which takes all night, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody called you saying they have your son at this cabin, I don't know, maybe just instantly call the police and also get the to that cabin.
So you think she didn't know it was him at that point?
I don't know.
Maybe she like kind of. Regardless, it's I mean, everything's getting.
It's such a crazy
bizarre
thing to believe. How could you believe it?
Yeah, her son's running into the bank, frantic, like, "You got to get the snowman to the mountains." And she's like, "Well, snowmans melt, Charlie. That's how it works." And he's like, "Ah!" And he leaves. It's like this is all pretty crazy. I get why she's maybe not.
Did Charlie ever say to her that the snowman is dad? I don't think
so.
He just said the snowman's alive.
Yeah.
So without that piece of information, I don't know.
Wouldn't you think, again, we've kind of talked about this, but like, wouldn't you think they'd want to share the reincarnated spirit of the father with her?
The rest, like after the credits roll, like the next 20 years is this woman resenting her son for hogging this experience with her dead husband when she could have had time.
Yeah, I feel like she would have appreciated having at least a couple hours to there.
It's a not even a once in a lifetime opportunity. It never happens. It's an impossible opportunity.
Magical, yeah, to say the least.
Yeah. And then the next morning, Jack says it's time for him to go. Even though they're at the cabin now and he's safe, he's like, nah, I'm going to peace out. I think I'm done with this life.
Yeah, because I guess it's getting warm again, but he's basically like, well, I must go die now.
It seems like there's something in him that knows like it's time for him to pass.
Yeah, that's true. I wrote down at this point, I was like, I don't remember how this ends, and maybe he comes back to life.
A worse
so I had a little bit of false hope.
Do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if this movie was made now or by Disney, it would absolutely that's what would happen. He would get a second chance at life.
Somehow, yeah.
Yeah. But I love that this movie doesn't do that. So
it's the bold choice. It's the brave choice.
The mom arrives and she just gets to see him for like maybe 20 seconds. He turns back into his human form, but he's kind of like a ghost. And then
ghostly apparition.
He's just like, peace out, and he turns into space dust, and that's it.
It's funny. He's like, the first thing he says to her is like, you look great. Like, that's what he says to his wife after. But then he sings her the song every time we say goodbye and blah, blah, blah.
That is a nice moment.
I guess Max just sitting in the car having a smoke this whole time.
Yeah, he didn't want to say anything. I mean,
I guess it was like tasteful to give the wife and kid the time with him.
Tasteful.
But if I were Mac, I would have wanted to say what's up. Yeah.
Hey man, remember we used to jam? Hey, I'm trying to have the final 10 seconds with my family here. All right. So that's it. He just is dead now. I like that the movie commits to this. The arc of the story is about Charlie processing grief, and to undermine that with Jack actually getting to live at the end would just undo the whole.
I agree. It would have
everything the movie's about. Would have
undone it all. Yeah, I did not cry in this, but I felt it was possible.
Yeah, when he was singing her that song that he had sung earlier or whatever, like it was very touching.
Yeah,
it was a nice moment.
And kind of seeing him and Charlie and the mom all know that this is this like fleeting last thing is like pretty tough.
It was almost weird having the mom involved because she was not a part of this situation at all.
Yeah, that's
to have her walk in on this and just, I guess she had the whole drive up to be like, that was Jack's voice. Like the snowman, maybe the snowman is alive. So maybe she was thinking about it the whole time and she was ready for it. I don't know.
I mean, there's something to that. It's like only Charlie can see him. I mean, it's unclear whether like physically, magically, only Charlie can perceive the snowman, but at very least, it's like it's only his thing. Like only he can access it.
It's his journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the movie not just kind of fade out on the sunset there?
No, there's one final scene that just shows that they are now moving on. Starts with Mac is in the house and he's playing the piano.
Right.
So he's accepted music back into his life.
Yeah.
And Charlie is in the street, I think just playing street hockey or whatever.
With his buddies, yeah. So he's playing hockey again. He's with his buddies again.
So
we don't see the report card, but we can assume that he's back to getting the good grades.
So they've got through it. They did it. Merry Christmas.